Okay, we're live, and yeah, music, here we are, again, as usual, on Thursday. Don't know why I'm speaking in this cadence, but yeah, we've got kind of an interesting week this week. There is some good music, I'm going to throw that out there, obviously, subjectively speaking, the music is always good in my opinion, but there are a few albums I'm going to talk about this week, which I think, I'm going to say two of them for sure. I actually just kicked one of them to the curb straight up because I don't want to talk about something which I'm pretty sure is AI generated. It took me a long time to kind of come to that conclusion, but yes, the other albums that we're going to be talking about today are, why is this not opening? Yes, cancel that. Okay, there we go. But the other albums are, I guess there's not that much controversy. There are two, and they are probably connected to the biggest releases. Like I said, there was one album which I had considered including kind of in the stream, which I decided to leave out because ultimately I concluded that it is AI slop. I'll play around with it a little bit more. I'll look into it. Maybe next week we'll talk about it. But I've decided that in the past I have talked about AI generated music, and I think in general my overall take on this situation is one where it's like, if you're an artist in 2025, you really have to make sure that you are a real artist, and even if you want to have some level of anonymity, you have to make sure that you are able to still come across as a real human being. And if I spent 20 to 30 minutes of digging online looking for you as an artist while listening to your music, which seems kind of auto-generated, and I can't find anything about you as an honest-to-God, flesh-and-blood human being, then I'm just going to assume that this is an AI project. So just a general, I guess, principle that I'm going with here. So I've laid that out now. The artist in question I have removed from the program this evening. So as it is, we have 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 13. Not bad. We're going to start out with rap and hip hop. Then we are going to move on to pop and indie music. Then we're going to go to electronic music. We actually have a lot of electronic music this week. Well, I guess it's not that much. It just feels like a lot. There's a lot of EPs. And then we're going to end with rock and metal. Actually, all things considered, looking at it now, it's a pretty even split. There are two rap and hip hop, 3 pop and indie, 5 electronic albums, and then 3 rock and metal. But again, like I said, the electronic genre is pretty heavy in the EPs this week, so that's part of the reason that it was easy for me to get through so much of it. But I'm going to go ahead and kick us over to our first album here, and this is the EP No Te Ni Slušal, and the artist is Stim, along with Lava Ula, I guess is how you say it. So this is the final EP in a triptych of releases by the rapper and this sort of new female vocalist here. Evidently, the other 2 releases, which I did not hear, but which I read about, the other 2 releases played more into the pop and electro sounds. But this is just a more straight-up rap release. Though obviously with the female vocalist here, Lava Ula, the choruses do have, a good amount of pop sensibility. Definitely some radio friendliness to this. Just in general, the delivery of the rap by Stim is quite smooth. He's got a nice cadence. And the lyrics are pretty generic, but at times they do have some deeper ideas. And the wordplay is pretty nice.
Таких полным-полно, а ты к великим метишь в один ряд. Лучше послушай, что тебе умные люди говорят, но ты не слушал.
All right, we have this kind of, again, it's just radio friendly. That's okay. It's kind of catchy. And then all right, playing with the audio a little bit. So yeah, right, you get it, right? We have the verse, which is stem, and then the chorus is taken care of by this Lava Ula lady. Kind of the formula throughout the 5 tracks on this EP, and it's yeah, it's fine. It's like just a normal one all the way around. So yeah, that is No Ты не слушал. That's the EP by Stim, with sort of the choruses and the, I guess, guest vocals, if you will, going over to Lava Ula. This is the final of a trilogy of EPs that the two of them released together. So let's get into the album here that's probably going to be a little bit controversial, or the one that we got to talk about. Bratland. I've seen a lot of jokes connected to Charlie XCX's, obviously, Brat Summer, which was last year, right? Brat Summer was last year. Yeah. I hope it was. Otherwise, I've fallen into a time loop. And with this album right here, Bratland, we have an album. And obviously, as you can see here, all of the tracks on this album are somewhere in the top 50 on Yandex's charts. In fact, I would say pretty much they're all within the top. Oh, no, there's one number 58, but they're all basically within the top 50. A lot of them within the top 20. So they're getting heavy rotation. And I've never listened to MACAN before. He kind of looks like a douchebag. I'm just going to throw that out there. He kind of looks like a douchebag. Like, yeah. Like, you know, the whole don't judge a book by their cover, but yeah. I am. And then the album artwork too. So I had never listened to MACAN before, and I have seen a lot of discussion about him on, you know, Russian hip-hop pages and communities and rap communities and things like that. And generally speaking, I'm not going to repeat what it is, but it's a lot of like sort of derisive homophobic commentary with regards to MACAN, which, you know, like I'm not going to pretend like that kind of language doesn't exist in similar communities in the States. But yes, so MACAN was an artist who I had never heard before and who I had not really seen anything necessarily positive about in the past. So I said, you know what the hell? This album came out. Let's give it a listen. And yeah, I don't normally talk about bad albums. I've talked about Friendly Thug 52, Friendly Thug, which everybody literally would have just eaten a hot steaming pile of dog doo-doo if Friendly Thug asked them to. They were like literally rolling around just like in epileptic fits over how fantastic that was. I thought it was hot garbage. But this is an album which is kind of an exception in some ways. It's a bad album, but it's not objectively bad. So let's talk about this for a little. This is a big rap album. As you can see, every single track on this album, let me just go ahead and close that. Every single track on this album has a guest star. And these are, if you're familiar with the Russian rap community, these are not, right, All Black 52, Basta, Goof, Bruto, Big Baby Tape, Yanix. A lot of these artists we've talked about at some point in time already this year. Saluki, Три дня дождя. Some of these I'm a little less familiar with, and I mean, that's to be expected, but this is stacked. This is a stacked thing. This is a big rap album. It's one that feels like it's an artist who's trying to show that he's a big rap star, or like a big pop rap star, I guess. One of the new faces who can kind of like unite the industry or whatever, right? It's got big production. It's got big arena-sized anthem-style tracks. But it's lacking soul and memorability. This feels like it was engineered in the studio, ultimately. So MACAN is here on the tracks, but I cannot remember a single bar. I listened to this entire album, and from start to finish, at not one point during this album was I just like, oh, that's MACAN, and that's a pretty good line. The only thing that I could remember by him was him rapping about how he has the flag behind him on the Flagman track. This line right here, which is like, Jesus, where is it? За моей спиной флаги, моя музыка флаг. It's just the fucking most cringe, horrible bullshit lyric I've ever heard, but I've heard in a long time. And honestly, the few tracks on this album that stood out to me did so because Bruto was here and because Big Baby Tape was here, not because MACAN was doing anything. So MACAN was just sort of like playing host to all of the guests on this album, which, to be fair, a week or two ago I talked about the artist Cassetta, who is a producer who basically made a bunch of music and had a bunch of guest singers and rappers on every single track. But there it felt like Cassetta was still there pulling the strings, right? He was giving them the musical accompaniment for them to really shine. I hear MACAN is just like sort of there. Like he invited all his friends to his birthday party, and then he's just sitting in the corner like a big old douchebag, or whatever. Yeah. Again, this is not a bad album. You can listen to this, and I mean, I'll play some of it right now. Like, the production is good. Like I said, this is a really big sounding album. It's got really good.
19-й глок без кобуры подходит, подходя в городе, бля, на каком ты худе, да, я видел этот хейт, я вертел его на хуе, железные кулаки, резиновые пули, бля, как же пистолеты в клипах далеки от улиц, они были индустрией, когда мы вдули кадеиновые рожи, плановые бизнесмены, не, мы не похожи, у нас разные проблемы, мы наносим ушибы, они фиксируют ушибы, 700 лошадей.
Like, again, if you don't understand Russian, then you can listen to this album and just enjoy it as like a pop rap album, basically. But like the same ideas he just recycles over and over again, and
Мне кажется, что быть шлюхами, барыгами это слишком. Я просто буду верить, что понятия не ушли. Всем постам, жизнь борцам, как нас слышно. Пацаны из России, доллары из Америки, золотые.
Like, it's so bland. And then, like, just to put it in the context, the reason I have this to say is because Bruto comes in.
Мы в 19 уже скрывались от властей. Мы люди не с худа, мы люди из областей. Мы в те годы худи называли капюшонкой. Нарки кололись под мошонку, я мутил с девчонкой. Мерен угнан из данного.
His deliverance is so much better. His lines immediately start to stick in your mind.
Мы стареем, ёбаный в рот, жил как бродяга. Жим, присед, тяга, Димон, Рус и Мага. Желаю блага, плач на плече, в плече пластина титановая, зановая.
So it's the problem ultimately is MACAN is here, but he just either is forgettable or gets ultimately just obliterated and eclipsed by the people he has on the track with him. So that's not a good thing. This is Again, just one more example. He's also kind of a bootlicker. Like, let's be real. He is all about making sure that those boots are spit shown. We'll put it like that. Not, okay, maybe not like that extreme, but it's like the Machine Gun Kelly type of thing. But even Machine Gun Kelly at least was fast, which, like, I hate fast rappers, but at least it's at least something better than MACAN. And then, like, you get, okay, so this has all been MACAN right now, and then we get to Big Baby Tape. And, like, you can hear in his delivery, like, he's kind of having fun. He's actually doing something here. So, yeah. Again, if you don't understand, and it's like this throughout a lot of the tracks too. With the track with Yannick's, again, MACAN tries to emulate kind of a little bit Yannick's style, and it just doesn't go well. It's not good for MACAN. So again, if you don't care about MACAN, if you don't understand Russian lyrics, and you're just here for, like, the sort of beat and atmosphere, then this is going to be a fine album. Like I said, objectively, this is not a bad album. Like, in terms of production, in terms of features, in terms of just the overall quality. But it's missing something very, very important. So, what I said is like this. It's not bad. It's just soulless rap that feels like it exists for rap in the same way that Christian rock existed in the 2000s, for a subgroup of people that didn't really care so much about the music or the culture. They just liked the aesthetics, and they needed an excuse to identify and be part of said musical culture. And I feel like that's what this album from MACAN here is for people in Russia. It's people who don't actually care about hip-hop or the skill or the whatever it is about it. People want a... I'm assuming people listen to MACAN want a douchebaggy-looking guy right here who, like, is in parentheses or in quotes, patriotic in whatever way, and who is a rapper, but then, like, is not controversial in any sort of way, and who is as white as, like, I don't know, white bread type of thing. So yeah, Bratland sucks. Fucking hate this. I will not be coming back and listening to this. The only two tracks I have hearted here are only because Bruto and Big Baby Tape actually made these tracks somewhat enjoyable listens, at least the half of the tracks that they were on. The rest of it's pretty garbage. And like I said, objectively not, but just like if you actually care about music in any sort of subjective way in terms of like identifying and connecting with it as a form of art, then this is... I don't know, man. This is like a Taco Bell bathroom type situation. So this is not my top rap pick of the week, but it is probably was the biggest rap release of this last week. So fuck that. All right, moving on. We are into pop and indie music, and we're gonna go with something which I think is much better. And if you've been following along with the music streams for a while, then you've probably heard of the group Bюро, and you've probably heard the other two EPs from this group already this year, one in the winter and one in the spring. And now this is the final release of a quartet of EPs that were musically attuned to the season. Autumn's EP came out late last year, or in the autumn last year. Now, I wasn't sure what to expect, obviously, with the summer one, but Büro have done a good job here. They captured the euphoria and the swagger that everyone kind of carries around with them on a long summer evening. They do a good job of translating the feel of a city cooked by the northern sun, and at the same time, the need to just cruise around while everything melts around you. And then, honestly, the final song of the three on this EP, of the trio, it ends with a slower, melancholic track that feels kind of like the end of the summer, right? It's beautiful, even as the vigor and the light kind of starts to fade away. And in a way, it musically completes the circle to the point where I really hope that Büro put together all 4 of these EPs onto a single album so that you could just leave it on repeat to spin again and again, like the cycles of nature and the cycles of life. But let's just get into it a little bit.
Будь со мной, даже без повода. Будь со мной, куда вела дорога. Повесло, на краю неба, золотой. Будь со мной, даже без повода. Будь со мной, куда вела дорога. Повесло, на краю неба, золотой.
Jump ahead a little bit. Could have sworn there was some guitar coming up here, but guitar's in the next track. The space and the reverb. Again, this is like that kind of the heat waves, that mirage effect, right? Of the heat rising off the asphalt and how everything just seems to emanate with, well, heat, I guess, in the summertime. Also, their singing is always great, and we're going to come back to another artist. We're not going to come back. We're going to come to another artist here very soon who has a very similar style of singing, which is great. And then, yeah, the final track, which I think is like the chord. Again, that sort of melancholic atmosphere. If you go back to the Autumn EP by the group, it starts out with a track that is a little bit more post-punk, so not quite like this, but the transition, again, if you had all 4 of these EPs kind of cycling through on repeat, it would still be like a good transition still. And I would like to sit down. I'm assuming that this is supposed to be August. There are 12 tracks, 12 months of the year. It'd be kind of interesting to kind of go through and re-listen to those and attempt to place each one with a specific month, even though it should be pretty obvious, but yeah. So yeah, that is the group Büro, and that is the final EP of their quartet here. The name of the EP is Oskолки, tak zakалялось стекло. I think I got that right. I think I did that okay. So Okay. Yeah, good. I was pleasantly surprised. It's very short. It's 3 songs, but I've enjoyed every single one of these that they have put out that I've talked about so far this year. So yes. Moving on, we have this. We have the album Dekadanse by the album Delorenzy. I'm not entirely sure how he wants to say it. So anyway, the track record for influencers and YouTubers releasing albums is not great. And in fact, I don't think I can think of one album done by an influencer or YouTuber that isn't done tongue-in-cheek that's actually enjoyable, at least until now. So Delorenzy here is or was a YouTuber. I'm not entirely sure. But he has decided to, I think, transition into music. And on this, which is evidently his 3rd full length and his first non-rap one, which, for real, like, why do all internet personalities think that they are rappers? I don't get that. But anyway, I can say that with this album, that trend of not actually having good albums from internet personalities is kind of broken. Sure, it is a post-punk album, which is all the rage in Russia and maybe elsewhere. I'm not entirely sure. But the sound here is woven through with dance pop and the dark R&B sound of The Weeknd. And while I've heard a lot of post-punk in the last 7 months, some of it good and some of it quite middling, this here is an album that, by not strictly adhering to the rules of the genre and attempting to, I guess, socially appeal to a wider audience, finds a take on post-punk that's both catchy and fun, yet still sad boy. So, it's gonna. So again, I mean, like, it's pretty post-punk, but not as doomer. Like, there's the vocals and how, I don't know. I mean, you could say it feels a bit like The Cure, not maybe Joy Division, but he does actually mention, I believe, New Order in the first track, right? So he is name dropping here a bit, so it's kind of, but. This guy's got that darker, again, sad boy energy, but feels kind of like a sad boy dance party, I guess. And the vocals, I think, in a large part, are okay. So Sonic Death слушал. У них есть что-то новое? Или вообще я слушал Sonic Death? Потому что, насколько я помню, да, я послушал Sonic Death когда-то. А «Птицу ем» давным-давно послушал. Даже не помню. До ковида, наверное. Вот когда был их последний альбом. Честно, не помню. So, I'll just stop. You get the idea. Like, most of the tracks... okay, yeah, so anyway, with the Sonic Death and all that stuff, we'll kind of come back to it. But yeah, I listened to Sonic Death. I've listened to Птицу. It's just been a long time. I think Sonic Death did something not long ago, though. It seems something's kicking around upstairs. But yeah, very nice sound, very fun. And again, the fact that this is a YouTuber who, as far as I could tell, focused on GTA 5 videos, for them to turn around and put out something like this, I think is a very pleasant surprise, is all I'm going to have to say. So yeah. I don't know. Again, like, I'm not a huge fan of post-punk. I really liked Plocha, like their take on it last year. And like I said, there's a lot of it that comes out here, but I do like this kind of new twist on it a little bit, or a slightly more pop-oriented version of it. So the album is Dekadanс, and the artist is Delorenzy. I don't know exactly what to say. Русский меня отлично, когда я постараюсь. И честно, вот там сколько лет уже? 15? Ну, типа того. Так что, если я говорил по-русски вот так, ну, так себе, это было бы ну, как обидно, скажем так. So, anyway, moving on to the, yeah, I mean, for a YouTuber, it's fantastic. So, all right. This album right here, it's an EP technically. This is ANTONKIREEV, I think is how, I'm horrible with last names here. But the EP is Юниор, Преданно. And okay, let's talk about this one, because I love this thing. First track is an intro track, so it's basically just 5 tracks. I don't expect anyone to remember or even know in the first place, but there was an artist who went by the name Twin Shadow, and his album, I have the wrong album name written down here. His 2012 album, Jesus, what was it? Is Twin Shadow still making music, by the way? 2021 was the last one. Yeah, I guess he still is. Anyway, his album in 2012 was Confess. And that album was way ahead of its time. And by what I mean by that is that, like, The Weeknd hadn't quite done that sound yet. Like, I feel like at this point in time in pop music, or at least for the last decade, The Weeknd was kind of steering the course of pop music in terms of, like, what sounds were going to become popular. But Twin Shadow in 2012 with his album Confess did it way before The Weeknd. And it was a love letter to the 80s pop rock sound, had the, like, kind of power guitar riffs that 2 decades later got added to $60 keyboards in Toys R Us. It had synth lines, it had falsetto singing. I fucking love that album. Still, to this day, I still have, like, a bunch of those tracks on my, like, skating playlist, like when I go out to skate, because it's just got, like, that, I don't know, it's just, like, got a drive to it. It's got great energy. And while this isn't exactly that, I listened to this EP so many times because it triggered some musical receptor, like, deep in my brain that's linked to that Twin Shadow album from 2012. And I love the fact that people are still doing that sound in 2025, and they're still doing it well, and even more so here in Russia. And as I was writing all this out, I realized that the Twin Shadow reference, if you don't get that, you might be familiar with the Autre which is A-U-T-R-E space N-E space V-E-U-T. That's the name of the band. Autre, which is the French. Their 2013 album, Anxiety, had a similar sound to this album as well. And I guess if you're not familiar with those 2 albums, then after you listen to this album, you can kind of put those on your list as well. But yeah, I guess I should just get to the music. And I love the fact that the artwork is actually a piece of art. It's like an actual painting that someone did. Not that it's become a problem necessarily, but AI art for album artwork is also on the rise. And I think that's also going to become a calling card, is that like when you see AI artwork, you're like, eh. So, and this is just kind of bizarre, and it fits. So, kind of feels like something from the 80s. But I love this. I love this. I cannot get enough of this album. This EP, whatever you want to call it. It's just got like the vibe is so strong here. There's that swing that is there in the music. It wants you to dance, and you know, you should. You should. Alright, I'm gonna skip ahead. So yeah, again, if you like this sound, and again, if you are not familiar with the albums I mentioned earlier, I will repeat: Twin Shadows, Confession, and then Outre Neveu with Anxiety from 2013. Like that kind of electro 80s pop rock, but the vocals tend to be more along the lines of that. Well, they're like the vocals are more indie, to be fair, like that kind of I don't even know what to compare them to. Like here it sounds like Sufjan Stevens a little bit, but so yeah, that is the EP Junior 1, Junior 1, Predanno, and the artist is ANTONKIREEV. Man, I'm horrible with last names. So, but yeah, that fantastic. I've honestly been listening to this kind of off and on all week, which is something because a lot of the times I don't spend a lot of time with albums. But moving on to electronic music, we had a kind of a big week for electronic music. I'm just gonna kind of get that out there. But part of it was because there were a ton of EPs, but that's pretty normal with electronic music. That's how it goes. First up, we have Manticore, the EP by the artist FLEISHER, as how I'm going to pronounce that. We have 3 tracks here, which are somewhere between glitchcore and rave music and that dark electro pop with female vocals. Vocals in English, mind you. And they're kind of like husky, whispered sort of delivery. Kind of sounds like a curse, which obviously with the aesthetics and the sound fits in perfectly. The final track is probably my favorite, as it kind of is a culmination. It runs through all of the ideas musically that are present on the first 2 tracks. But let's kind of give us this here. Got a bit of the, maybe not musically like Arca, but, you know, visually we're going for that. And also visually a little bit like, who else had the liquid metal thing not long ago? I don't know. Can't think of it right now. Jump ahead a little bit. Yeah. А культовое влияние сейчас, I think you can find. There's the vocals, though. I do love the vocals here, like how they're not buried, but they're also like in the middle of the mix, which I think a lot of the times people do not realize how effective that can be when you don't put yourself front and center. You kind of, I guess for a musical producer, you would probably understand that pretty well, but so yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Like, that general sound, I think I jumped to the end, it gets a little bit different, but no, we just get like more layering on top of it. So this track kind of has elements and ideas that are there in the first 2 tracks as well. But yeah, if this is your vibe, oh yeah, I mean, obviously like cult or occult style imagery, but like the thing is too with like occult style imagery, a lot of it has to do with one of 2 things, something geometric, right? And I mean, that is natural. There's just like something, we love symmetry. Humans love symmetry. Like, we know that just because of how we value beauty. Beauty is connected to how symmetrical something is, right? All the studies that have been done with it. And then there's also things look more occult when they look both symmetrical and, in some senses, biological, right? Like, the fact that we have this sort of symmetrical, odd sort of thing, which is like, it's kind of insect-like. And obviously, like, I guess you could say it's a cult. It does feel almost more, in my opinion, and with Manticore being the titled hair, it does feel a bit even more like xenomorphic, like something out of an H.R. Geiger type drawing. And H.R. Geiger, right? Like, obviously his artwork and Alien, like those imageries, or like the images connected to both the film and the artist are as evocative as they are, is for that very reason, that there's something symmetrical and biological about it. And by default, biology does not equate geometrical, right? And so like, there's something about that, like something that is inherently geometrical has to be designed by, not by nature, right? By like something with intellect. And so if it is both biological and geometrical, then yes, there is some sort of like Hellraiser as well, right? Like the whole idea of the cube and everything. So yeah, that's there. But anyway, the sound, you get the idea. Manticore is the EP. The artist is FLEISHER. So moving on, we have the artist Prevail, not Probel, just for all you English speakers out there, it's Prevail. And the EP is Orphanage. This is debut EP by the artist out of Voronezh, and I love this type of music. It's kind of this spacious, just contemplative music space. The artist is working in the future garage genre. Has a lot of the Burial DNA, right? But feels a little bit more transcendent than that. A little bit more heady and rhythmic, but I guess a little heavier as well too. So, and there's a lot of use of the sort of vocal tracks. I'm gonna have to jump ahead just a second. So again, like just the dumbest, most basic explanation. This is headphones music, right? Like, just kind of put it on, and we're gonna have more of that a little bit later as well. But, like, not to be reductive, but in my opinion, electronic music is really at its best in a few situations, and one of them is this sort of, again, the transcendent sound, where you're taking something which does not, again, it does not exist in nature. Electronic music all exists in the digital aether. And so by doing that, by taking something which is inherently, I guess in a way, not of this earth, which we have like invented and created, and which exists outside of the traditional physical space, you can make music which then can better symbolize that, can better symbolize those kind of non-tangible spaces. And I always love music that does that. And it doesn't have to be bright and uplifting, right? Like, it can be a little bit more oppressive as well. But yeah, I don't know. Prevail here, this artist, this is the debut EP, so obviously it'll be interesting to see what the artist does moving forward in the future. But I don't know. I love this sound because it's the type of music that, because it is heady, right? It's like it's all contemplative. You can kind of listen to it in any mental, emotional state, and it's like a Rorschach test, right? It's the ink blot test where, depending on how you feel, you're going to take something else out of it. So yeah, that is the Orphanage EP. The artist is Prevail. Yeah, just a nice short little EP, and shows a lot of potential. So we'll have to see what the artist does in the future. Now, for kind of the polar opposite to that, we have the Rampage EP by Volumate. And you can probably guess where we're going with the Rampage EP. This is What If the Doom soundtrack, but with drum and bass and glitchy break beats, right? Seriously, Mick Gordon unleashed a monster into the music industry about a decade ago. This music here, it's energetic, it's brash, surprisingly deep too. There are a lot of layers on these tracks, but it's just kind of fast and in your face, and like with Killzone, Drum and Ass, Hypnotonic, and Rampage, yeah. So the polar opposite of what we just listened to. And you know what? Sometimes you want music like this too, right? It's the type of thing that you're going to go to the gym, you're going to go cycling, you're going to go for a run. I mean, sports, like this is that type of music for sure. Or I guess if you're having a Matrix style party, I don't know. But like, if you actually listen, you spend a little bit of time on the tracks too, they do layer, right? Like, they do develop over time, and it is, like I said, it's surprisingly deep for the type of music that we're dealing with. On a lot of the tracks, there tends to be more going on in the background than you would normally give it credit. So, you get the idea. I'm not going to sit here and beat it to death. That is the EP Rampage. The album, that's the EP Rampage. The artist is Volumate. And yeah, if you just want something little pep in your step type stuff, that's going to be a good choice. So, all right, now we're actually moving into album territory. And we got to talk about DEATHORIA, with the album Solace in Reverie. So this is the debut album from a producer. And honestly, this is a pretty interesting electronic release, at least for a full length, because we don't get a ton of those, I feel like, a lot of the time. It feels a little bit all over the place. And it kind of does the thing which Cassetta was doing a few weeks ago, where we have lots of guests throughout the album, and DEATHORIA is trying to like produce different soundscapes, different beats for his various featured artists. By and large, the music is drum and bass, that kind of classic techno sound from about 20 to 30 years ago in here in Russia, in the former Soviet Union. But it has a lot of modern pop sensibilities with it. It feels a lot like Quoke's releases from earlier this year, both Quoketopia and his, 2517? And so it's really not a surprise to see Quoke down here on this album as well. But I'm just going to jump in, give us a taste, because sonically it is kind of all over the place. But again, that drum and bass is going to be the backbone of this whole thing. I love the album. The album artwork is fantastic here. It's just got that kind of dreamy atmosphere, which, and also otherworldly with these shiny things. So like for a first track, right, it's got a lot of ambiance, feels very, well, it builds. There's that drum and bass. And this is the core. But we're just going to jump around a little bit, like I said. So, drum and bass, and like pop music. If you're not a fan of drum and bass, this is probably not going to be the album for you. But if drum and bass is a genre which maybe you're not familiar with, or maybe you've heard before, but you're just like not, I don't know, super familiar with, then this is also like not a bad introduction to that general sound as well. Yeah, like a portfolio. I mean, like, realistically, it's a mixtape. It's a mixtape of an album. But I think it's interesting, too, because, like, in the past, the idea of a mixtape was connected to a rapper. And a rapper just rapping over a bunch of different beats that didn't technically belong to him or her. And I think with producers, and as producers start to make more of their own music, yeah, this idea of a portfolio or a mixtape actually becomes like maybe the core, like the nexus idea of what an electronic album should be, or like a producer's album should be, in the sense that as a producer you want to kind of stretch your wings and show your flexibility. But like, again, it's drum and bass. Like, that is the core of this entire album. But like, all of the different takes on it are what kind of make it such a, because drum and bass, just like any genre, can kind of get to be, especially like techno genre, can get to be a little bit, it can drag after a while. But when you have interludes and spaces like this where things kind of shift gears, then you don't really have that issue as much. To be granted, you go back to the drum and the bass, but throw Quoke's track on as well, where he shows up. That like that's Quoke 100% right there, working in the background. And again, the Spanish here is like kind of a... This is Spanish, right? It's not Italian. I'm like not hallucinating, am I? Yeah, that's Spanish. So yeah, a little bit here and there, a little bit there, but it is, again, it's largely drum and bass, but there's just like, it is a kaleidoscope around that singular spindle of drum and bass in the middle, and everything kind of refracts and morphs around it. So that is the album Solace in Reverie, and the artist is DEATHORIA. And this is kind of an odd pick, I suppose, maybe, for the top pick of electronic music this week. DEATHORIA is good, but it's a little bit too hectic and energetic for me. I do like things a little bit more laid back most of the time. Like, I like DEATHORIA, it's good sound, but it's not something I can just like throw on at any point in time. This album, however, Distant Lanterns by syrokkbreakk is how I'm going to pronounce that. This is something I could listen to at any time. So this is evidently a change in sound from like the glitchcore that the artist did in the past. syrokkbreakk is from Buryatia. What is this album? It's an album of like dark, bassy spaces. It's 8 tracks that are brooding future garage. The album artwork there is perfect. This is the visual encapsulation of what this sounds like. It is raindrops on a nighttime bus window as you are taking the final bus back home to the outskirts of the city, right? It's the type of music to explore liminal urban spaces too, which is like what you would find in the majority of Russia's post-industrial cities, right? Places that you're just as likely to disappear into thin air as you are to get lost in a vortex of thought. This is the perfect release for the second half of July, when night is beginning to reassert itself and remind you that it never really went anywhere. So it's very atmospheric, especially the first track, but don't like, it's basically the dark mirror variant of what we heard with Prevail. It's very spacious, it's got a lot going on, but it's exploring a darker audio side. I mean, ideally, this is an album that probably should have been released in like September, maybe even early October, but I guess you don't sit on things for too long. It's borderline soundtrack territory too at times. Like, this is definitely a walking album, I guess is how I would put it. Like, it's designed for movement, but introspection at the same time. And it's a very specific thing, but like I feel like nighttime walking music, as weird as that might sound as like a specific concept of music, is very much a thing And like this is definitely part of that, if you were to make that into a genre. Also, I do want to point out one thing too, which I think is kind of important. I have these little earphones in right now, which are, you know, they do the job well enough, but the last times I have listened to these, or to this album, I have used like larger over-the-head headphones, right, which do a better job of producing a bigger sound. And the difference in sound between those two sources is night and day for me here. I actually was just listening to this a few hours ago, so if I would say too, if the album here feels a little bit flat, it might be with regards to how you're listening to it. This is, again, what I would, kind of like with Prevail, what I would consider headphone music. Like, you really need good headphones that do a good job of kind of like immersing you into the sound. And in the same way, it does have a lot of burial DNA in it as well. So yeah, I guess if you're in too much of a summer mood right now, maybe just bookmark this album, hold off on it until the weather starts to take a turn for the worse, the days get a little bit shorter, and the leaves start to change color and start to, you know, fall their way to the ground. And at that point in time, if you go out for a walk in the evening, throw this on, because I feel like this is probably going to fit that mood wonderfully in about 2 months, for better or worse. So yeah, that is the album Distant Lanterns, and the artist is, as I'm pronouncing it, syrokkbreakk. So yeah, that's it for electronic music, and that brings us to rock and metal. And yes, we're gonna start off with 2 EPs, and then we're gonna get to the big one. So the first EP we have is Limb. That's the EP by Anti-Object Task Force, which is a group out of Tambov, if I remember correctly. So this group's EP from last year reminded me a lot of Kailessa. And when I was listening to like the introductory track on this album, I kind of thought that we were going to be getting into that with like the drive and aggression of Kailessa. But instead, we got a release that kind of turns down the dial on the stoner rock and opts to turn up the dial on the psychedelic rock. The first track here has a nice balance between the old sound and the new sound. But as the EP moves along, it drifts a little bit more into the psychedelic rock sound. I've seen a lot of people describe it as like music with Eastern motifs, which I guess you could see, but it just feels like psych rock. I guess just psych rock, right? Syrokkbreakk, yeah, that's what it is. Syrokkbreakk. So, I will say, and no knock to the Limb EP here by Anti-Object Task Force, but their EP last year was stronger, I will say that. And it's not just like me being less of a fan of psych rock. Maybe it is. Like this is still fine. I listened to this a few times through. It feels noodly and all over the place here because I'm jumping around a little bit, but like it is with most psych rock, it's very atmospheric, right? You just kind of like are supposed to envelop yourself in it. I guess the album artwork does a good job of that. This moment right here, right, when we get into that heavier sound, this was more dominant on their EP last year. And I will just be blunt, I hope they go back to the sound because they do a very good job with it. Like, you can have that Kylesa stoner rock sound, but also have it be very psych and spacious at the same time. So, like this, I love this. I think I dig this sound. It's kind of heavy, but also you're just vibing. And then like the final track is just definitely like kind of in its own space as well. So yeah, if you're in the mood for a little bit of some psych rock that does drift into heavier territory, then this EP right here, Limb Son, by the group Anti-Object Task Force, is going to be a nice option for you. Still, I will say, I do hope that the group goes a little bit back to the sound that they were playing with last year, because I think ultimately it is a better sound. And if you are interested in that sound, you should go back and check it out. It's the Cat album. It's the Cat album. Also, I love the artwork on this album, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, we got 2 albums left, and we have ПОЛМАТЕРИ with the album or the EP простая, замечательная, жизнь. EP. Should you put the word EP in the name of your EP? I don't really know, but okay, whatever. Honestly, this is just an absolute delight of an album. It's indie pop rock. That based on the lyrical content feels a lot more like punk. In fact, feels more like punk rock lyrically than most of the punk bands out there doing it. Musically, it is all over the place, but it's always just a blast to listen to. The sarcasm in the text of the lyrics is the equivalent of giving the middle finger to everything around you while wearing your most sincere smile. I don't know, this is like, it's such a short EP, but oh my god, it's just got like such great vibes and energy. Yeah, you're right. Heavy psychedelic with female vocals in Russia is a bit odd. It's not like super common in the States either, though. Or abroad, I don't think. Like Kylesa stood out for that reason as well. Like, is it pop? Is it rock? Is it pop punk? It doesn't matter. Could I have put this in the indie category? Yes. But again, the lyrics are just so caustic that like the attitude is so rock and roll. I had to put it here. That's just it.
Африканец, не ходи босым, обуви нет, сходи в магазин. Хочешь попить, налей из графина, все просто как день, не благодари. Просто купи себе дом, если бесстромный, и приготовь себе еду, если голодный. И если денег нет, просто заработай. И если хлеба нет, то покушай торты. А если ты заболел смертельно, поговори об этом с врачом. А если даже у него с этим проблемы, все очевидно, бро, не умирай и все.
I love these lyrics. Like, just kind of.
Если горит кредит, то просто погаси его другим. Автобус не пришел, сходи, купи себе автомобиль. Если заплутал в лесу, то поскорей домой вернись. На карте пустой беренал. Если грустно, не грусти. Если ты толстый, похудей, иди поешь, если худой. Если с девушкой порвал, то просто позвони другой. Если закончился пивас, просто налей себе еще. Если на квартиру купишь, то откладывай миллион каждый месяц.
Yeah, so again, you get the idea. It's, again, if you understand Russian and you can get into the lyrics, then it does kind of take the whole attitude of everything to another level. It is very kind of popish in its own way, but I think the attitude, again, as I said before, is what sets it into a more of a punkish area, because there is definitely, it's very disguised, I guess, but there is a lot of the sort of, you know, middle finger to the system stuff going on here as well. And just like outsiderness as well, even on tracks like Nilovka, just sort of like being uncomfortable around other people. And then just this kind of like being a rock star type of thing. So yes, that is the EP, Простая, замечательная жизнь EP. And the group is ПОЛМАТЕРИ. So yes. And then we've got The One, and this is an album. I've got a lot. I wrote an entire goddamn page about this album. So let's talk about this a little bit before we get into it. So this is the album Grizzly by Slaughter to Prevail. And we're going to talk about the album in just a second, but I'm going to lead into it. So despite the Russian Supreme Court recently deciding that the international Satanist movement is now an extremist group and something to fear and probably persecute, an imaginary organization, mind you, it's likely that it is going to be used to go after the metal community to some degree, because if there is some level of open dissent within Russian society, it is probably within the metal community. But it is important to remember, despite all of the stuff that I just said, for everyone, regardless of what country that you are in, the metal community is one of the most toxic and dramatic ones there is in the music world. The level of gatekeeping, the number of discussions as to what is true of a super niche subgenre, more than the sound and imagery, if anything should frighten people away from the metal community, it is the banality of the bitching and moaning and nitpicking about every large name release that comes into metal. Slaughter to Prevail, without a doubt, is Russia's largest and most recognizable metal group, both at home and abroad. Though you are going to see all sorts of vitriolic arguments online as about with regards to whether or not they really belong in the United States, or whether or not they're really Russia, or if they should go back to Russia, or if they should just stay in the United States. Just great stuff, obviously. It has split the metal community down the middle, as usual, this release, Grizzly. Some argue, typically in the States, about the group's background and how they're maybe kinda in bad taste. Others talk about how the music is dry and soulless and easily forgettable, as though the metric ton of black metal bands that make up the bulk of Russia's metal releases are somehow rife with shit that just, sticks in your memory immediately. Obviously, that's the case. Or how Slaughter to Prevail are maybe traitors by relocating. There's just all sorts of fun discussion about this group that isn't actually directly connected to the music. I mean, the whole dry and not memorable thing, I guess, but we'll get to that in a second. I kind of fucking hate this nonsense, right? All genre music is going to be repetitive and formulaic. That's the concept of genre, by and large. There are rules that you follow. That is how you get labeled a specific genre. For example, I love the Black Dahlia Murder. They are one of my favorite groups ever. And I can listen to their albums one after another, loving every single minute of said music, while recognizing that the majority of the catalog is largely the same. That's not a problem. That's just something that comes with genre. If you read science fiction, it's kind of the same story. If you read detective stories, kind of the same thing over and over again. Westerns, kind of the same thing over and over again, right? You can do things here and there that switch it up a little bit, and we'll talk about that with regards to this album, but genre is genre for a reason. So, what about the actual album? Well, we've got 13 tracks here, and Slaughter to Prevail have strayed away from the deathcore formula which brought them fame in the first place. They started moving away from that sound already on their last album, and here they found a comfortable middle ground between the speed and intensity of deathcore, and then nu metal on the other side. Deathcore and kind of nu metal. There definitely are some homages to Rammstein in here on tracks like Babaika, Behelit, and Rodina. And they don't just pay respect to groups like Rammstein as well. I mentioned nu metal, and even though I don't really consider them a nu metal group, Slaughter to Prevail pays a lot of respect to, I think, a group which was probably very formative to the members' musical upbringing, Slipknot. Listening to Grizzly, this felt like the type of music the Des Moines crew was making around the time they put out their albums Iowa and All Hope Is Gone. It's just fast, it's aggressive, it's unrelenting. And with regards to that thing that I said earlier of how people were saying this is, how did I say it? How did I say it? It's dry, soulless, and easily forgettable with regards to this music. What I'll say is this. Most of the time when people listen to metal, especially in genres related to deathcore or really high intensity metal like that, that's kind of exactly what they're looking for. They're just looking for something that is intense and just straight to the point. They're not looking for melodies to latch onto. Let's be real, when people go into a Hatebreed album, they are not expecting Jamie Josta and company to reinvent the wheel. They just want something that slams hard, right? And this album slams. So all the debate about visuals and residency or whether or not something is derivative, in the end, that's all pointless, especially in a genre like metal, especially in a genre like deathcore or nu metal or death metal or whatever that happens to be. Does the album make you want to mosh, to slam, to flip a parked car? I don't know, whatever, right? If the answer is yes, then it's probably doing something well. This music does. And even if not every single track sticks around in your memory, even if there isn't a ton of melody, there never is in this genre, to be honest, it's an album that serves a specific purpose, right? It imbues the listener with a certain energy, and for people who are looking for that, this is going to stick around in their rotations. They're going to save this album. They're going to buy this album. They're going to put a ton of the album tracks into various playlists. This is a solid album in that regard. I do also want to point out there are 2 guests on this album, Ronnie Radke and Baby Metal. Ronnie Radke is a caustic figure online. He is the king of internet drama in the internet community, or internet drama in the metal community online. And Baby Metal is an all-female Japanese group that sparked controversy and debate when they first came onto the metal scene, with discussions about, is it really even true metal, right? Like that sort of gatekeeping nonsense again. So even though I'm not a fan of those 2 specific artists, Ronnie Radke and Baby Metal, I do think there is something kind of very like perfect about them being here and on these songs. And honestly, the songs that they are on actually benefit from them being here as well too. So I know I've been yapping for a long time. This is an album that when I was listening to this, as it is a lot of times, I look at what other people have to say, right? Because sometimes people maybe can identify a sound that I haven't like quite latched onto. But with metal, most of the time, it's not an issue. People just give like a really brief description. It's tech death, it's black death, or whatever the hell it happens to be. And I saw so many people just going off about this album. And yeah, I hate that. The metal community is a toxic place, unfortunately. It should not be like that. It is a community, musically speaking, that is so based on imagery and pretentiousness that everyone kind of forgets that if you're part of the metal community, you're already kind of an outcast. So shut the fuck up and just have fun, right? Like, that's the whole point of metal. And yeah, I'm just going to jump into this. I think this is a great album. I don't care if you think this is an American group already because they've left Russia. If you think this is a Russian group because they are singing in Russian. This is a Russian group, ultimately. They have their roots in the Ural Mountains, and that's not going to change. And I think that this is still, for better or worse, and despite what anybody's going to say, I think this is still probably one of the best Russian metal albums so far this year, despite claims otherwise. So let's just get into it. Be prepared. Like, this is 100% Slipknot, circa Iowa, right? And everyone loves Iowa nowadays. The rim shots there. So yeah, it's not the deathcore sound anymore. It's like straight up Slipknot right here. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. The first time I listened to Iowa by Slipknot, there were maybe 2 tracks that stuck out in my memory. It's just also from the point of view of looking back on some of these sounds and albums after a decade, then you're like, yeah, these are classics. For people who are going to listen to this album many, many times, and there are going to be a lot of people who listen to this album many, many times, there will be stone cold classics on this thing. I want to get to Ronnie Radke here. I know these guys have toured with Slipknot, so obviously that is going to rub off on them 100%. There is so much Slipknot DNA here. Throwing a track that's got a little bit of the Rammstein influence in it as well. Kind of start out with the traditional sound there too. So again, it does not stick to one specific sound, but like to pretend that this is Dry and Solace and just like the same thing over and over again, I think it's also just like super reductive and simply refusing to interact with the music for some personal reason that you have going into the album. And how could this not be a Russian group if they literally have a song about koshi? And then the baby metal track, because like they also are singing in Japanese on this one. English, Japanese, and Russian. So I know this is not for everyone. Like, I get that. That's metal. Like, this is kind of awesome. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of dumb, but it's kind of awesome. And I don't know, it is memorable in my opinion, so. And then one last one, Kid of Darkness, which was the one single in the lead up to this album that I actually listened to. So, I don't know. All of the nonsense surrounding this album, all of the unwarranted hate towards it, I will say, from both sides, for whatever the reason happened to be. It's just the metal community being a bunch of little bitchy babies, which they always tend to be. So yeah, there were some really good albums this week, but I do think that in the grand scheme of things, regardless of how you feel about it, I do think that Grizzly by Slaughter to Prevail will still end up probably having a pretty long life cycle, regardless of what people will have to say, simply because of the weight of the band currently and the fact that it pays homage and respect and, I mean, let's be real, kind of recycles the ideas of very popular groups like Slipknot and Rammstein, but takes it and does something new with it. And that's what you're supposed to do with art and anything. So yeah, I'm going to call it. That's my top pick of the week, Grizzly by Slaughter to Prevail. It is, and the other thing too, it's 13 tracks long. It's 50 minutes. It is a beefy album in 2025. It's a full-fledged, honest to God, meat on the bone sort of album in 2025. And it is one that when I was listening to it, I didn't feel like it took 50 minutes to get through. It just like went. So that's that. That's all I got to say. So yes, that is it. We've gone through another week. Yeah. I am glad for everyone who kind of showed up and was here for the stream. Hopefully an hour and a half, a little bit longer, but I had a bit more to say on some of the albums this week than I do at other times. Yeah, I hope everyone found something of interest. And I mean, that's the whole idea, right? And yeah, obviously, end of story. Thank you for chiming in. It's always a pleasure when you are here. I do enjoy kind of chit-chatting, kind of having a little bit of a back and forth with you with regards to the music. So yeah, I'll back next week will technically be the first. Oh no, it will be the final day of July. And because most albums are released on Friday, that means that this next week is my last week to try to get through all of the remaining July releases that I have not yet. I actually have a few which I could have included this evening, but I didn't actually, again, sit down and get my thoughts typed out. So that's a «Если бы тебя не было, мне бы тоже не было». Are you a figment of my imagination? I hope not. I hope you exist in the real. I hope you're not like a Tinkerbell character. You're gonna clap for you or something like that. But anyway, yeah. Next week I will try to get through all of the other July releases that I have been meaning to get to, as well as whatever else comes out tomorrow. I have no idea. I have not checked in the last few days of what is coming up. But yeah, everyone have a good evening. Or end of story. Are you my FSB agent? Is that it? That's probably it, right? If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here. So I see you, bud. I got you. I ain't going anywhere. Nah, but for real. Everyone have a good evening. Have a good afternoon, if it happens to be afternoon for you, whatever time of the day it happens to be. Everyone take care of themselves. I will see you when I see you. I'll be back next Thursday, 10 p.m. Moscow time, to do the music as well. And I'll be back on Sunday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Moscow time to chit-chat a little bit about what's been going on here in Russia, just like in general events. But anyway, y'all take care of yourselves. I will see you when I see you, and until then, пока-пока. I hope you still see this because I have not hit end stream yet, but end of story. Не из 3 букв. Best thing to ever hear. Everyone take care.